Okay. All right. I think I'm live. I'll wait for YouTube to send me a confirmation that I'm live. Oh, okay. There it is. Let's begin. And I'll just read the questions in order. First one, and if you want to follow along, just scroll all the way up the list to the top in the chat, and you can follow along. I think last week my question confused. You told me a drunk man. Excuse my English in third language. My question was what characteristics you look for in people when you hire them, or what traits are very easy to find out in first few meetings. Really difficult to find talent with passion. I'm probably the wrong person to ask that question to. When I hired from a small business perspective, you don't really have the candidate pool that a large organization would have. So oftentimes it's not a matter of finding the optimal candidate. It's a matter of finding somebody that can at least do the job. But sometimes you get lucky and a good one comes along. Other times, not so much. The not so much was more common than the good ones. But with a small business, trying to find top talent is not going to happen because they go to larger organizations. That is a challenge. So I'm probably the wrong person to ask that question to. I don't understand why a higher or lower interest rate leads to a forward discount or premium. High interest rate equals high inflation risk, but why does that lead? Oh, okay. So you're talking about a forward price. The forward price, in no way is it a projection of anything. It is not a fundamental price at all. It doesn't say, well, inflation is this or this is it. It has nothing to do with the market at all. All it is the interest rate differential between the two currencies. So let's say we have a spot price over base, and the price currency. Let's say it's a 3-month rate. You would look at the 3-month interbank rate in the price currency and in the base currency. If the interbank rate and the price currency were higher, the ratio that you're multiplying the spot rate with would be greater than 1, which means the forward price would be at a premium. That's a no arbitrage price. That just makes sure that you cannot borrow money in one country, invest in another country for a period of time, and make a free profit. If you did that, the forward price would be exactly what you would make, thereby getting rid of any arbitrage opportunities. It has the price itself. The forward price is not a projection. It's not a fundamental price. It's not based on inflation or any expectation of where the market thinks the price is going in the future. Nothing to do with any of that. Let's see. Completed fixed income, equity, alt, FSA. First 6 chapters of quant, done with more than half derivatives. Exam February. How am I looking? Do I need to increase my pace, or is it good? Well, I don't know. If you say I've done all that in the last 3 months, I'd say, okay, you're on track. If you say, well, it took me 2 years to get all that done, am I on track? No, you're not. If it takes you 2 years to get to that point, then, so I would have to know the first part. And if it is a reasonable amount of time that it took you to do that, you're on track. Level 3 candidate, really confused about the essay type questions. Okay, stop using the word essay. They're not essay questions. They're structured response. The response has a particular structure. That's it. They're not essays. As soon as you start thinking they're essay questions, you start writing sentences and paragraphs, 50, 60, 70, 80 word answers. No answer will be more than 15 words, 20 words maximum if you don't have the English language. But these do not go on and on and on. In your answer, you are not in any way whatsoever attempting to teach the grader the answer. You're simply telling the grader what the answer. So if the answer is up, just say rates would go up. You don't have to say, well, because of this and because of that, rates would go up, and here is why rates would. You don't have to explain your answer. You just have to state your answer. You are not teaching the grader the answer. In university, Professors want to know that you know what's going on. So when you have a question, usually there's you got to explain yourself. Show me that you really do know it. It's not just an answer. This is not an essay. It's a structured response. So that might be what's causing you grief. I wrote formula and all the steps and calculations. Do not do that. Ever do that. There are no marks for writing out formulas or the steps. I could see essay type questions in mock exam only. It was taking a lot of time in level 3 because you're probably writing too much. You're answering them wrong. It's about the shortest possible answer, and every answer is 1 or 2 cognitive steps away. If you're looking at it going, well, okay, this would go up, and if this goes up, that goes there, and if that goes there, everyone's going to do this, and if they do that, no. It's never going to be that many cognitive steps away. The answer is always 1 or 2 cognitive steps away. You tell the grader the answer. Don't explain the answer. 1 or 2 bullet points at the most. The structure of your answer should always be, I see these words written in the vignette, therefore this is my answer. No question will actually ask you to just regurgitate things from memory. There'll be no question that says list the 3 characteristics of an index. Ever. Everything flows from the vignette. If you have a subscription to markmeldrum.com, when we go through the exam walkthroughs about a month before the exam, I have live sessions. I drill this into your head again and again and again and again. We look at every keyword and we say, how do we answer this keyword? Struggling to understand difference between CAL and CML. That's capital allocation, capital market. Seems like both have global minimum variance. Yeah. But questions I've done link it to CML exclusively. Well, probably because the question has been about the CML. So break it down. What's the first one? Allocation. It's an allocation line. Capital allocation. You're allocating between the risky asset and the risk-free rate. And in what proportion do you allocate your capital? You allocate it along the line that has the highest slope tangent to the efficient frontier. And if you calculate what the slope of that line is, it's a Sharpe ratio. So in other words, it's saying the efficient portfolio is the one with the highest Sharpe ratio. What's the numerator of the Sharpe ratio? Sigma. So the capital, to determine how to allocate your capital between the risky asset and the risk-free asset, is done in volatility space, meaning that the denominator is going to be volatility. So you can have a well-diversified portfolio or a single stock because you're dealing with volatility. But volatility is hard to understand. When you say to somebody, okay, what level of volatility do you want? 8%, 10%, 12%? Most people are like, I don't know. I don't know, because they don't think in volatility. So why not think in terms of the market? Do you want to be riskier than the market, as riskier the market, or less risky? Well, that's beta, right? So now you have the capital market line where you're determining the allocation between some well-diversified portfolio, not a stock now, some well-diversified portfolio, and the risk-free rate, or or cash, let's say. And you're saying, well, what beta would you like? Well, beta of 0.8. Great. There's beta 0.8. Go up to the line, and it's going to be the same thing as a capital allocation line. It's got a it's got a trainer ratio, because what is the space that you're mapping in? Beta, not sigma. So your denominator is beta. You're going to have a trainer ratio, and you're getting the highest trainer ratio. Right? So it's fairly straightforward. Just use the A, allocation. And the first one, you're allocating between 2 things. Best way to try to understand topics you have a hard time conceptualizing. Best way to understand a topic. I guess just thinking it through or hearing it explained in a different way. For example, topics such as duration, where the math is easy, but the conceptual understanding is hard. How can that be? How can the math be easy, but the conceptual understanding be hard? It's an unfortunate word, duration. I really wish they would have chosen something else. But you understand beta, you understand duration. So we can calculate Macaulay duration. We know what Macaulay duration is. If you take the first derivative of Macaulay duration, you get modified duration. Well, what is a derivative? What is the first derivative of any function? High school calculus here. It is a rate of change, which means it's a percentage. It's a rate of change. So modified duration is the first derivative of Macaulay duration. Modified duration must be measuring the rate of change. And the first derivative of Macaulay duration is the first derivative with respect to R, the interest rate. So if you change the interest rate, Macaulay duration would change. That measure of time would change. Well, what percentage does it change by? That's modified duration. It tells you the percentage or the rate of change in Macaulay duration for a change in R, which will give you the rate of change. If you use a transitive property, it'll give you the rate of change in the value of your portfolio for a change in the interest rate, because it is a first derivative. So it's calibrated to 100 basis points. So for a 100 basis point move, something that has a duration of 16 will move 16%. That's all it is. It's just calculus. It's just the first derivative of Macaulay duration. Now, we don't want to be taking a derivative all the time. That's just a lot of work to take a derivative, to structure the portfolio, take a derivative. So is there a way we can approximate that? Well, that would be approximate modified duration, PV minus PV plus over 2 times change in yield times PV naught. That gives us an approximation to the straight line change, but we know there's convexity, right? So whenever we have that approximation, we have the convexity adjustment, which is why with approximate modified duration, you add on a convexity adjustment. But with modified duration, if you're actually taking the first derivative of Macaulay duration, it has within it the convexity. Just try to see it in the simplest way. Try to, whenever you're having difficulty with something, just try to say, where have I seen this before? Have I seen something like this before? So when we get to derivatives, for example, and you're looking at all the formulas and derivatives, you say, well, okay, I get what I'm trying to do. Here's the forward price, here's the price, and to compare things, we have to sort of move them together. Well, isn't that time value of money? And if you understand time value of money, you understand derivatives, which means if I said, what would be a formula for the forward price of this underlying, you would say, well, all I got to do is bring this to this point in time. And you'd say, well, that's time value of money. And in writing it out, guess what you just did? You just wrote out the formula for the forward price of any underlying. It's just time value of money. Think about where you've seen that problem before, and most of the time you've seen it in simple applications. The difficult part of education is not necessarily the textbook. Like, let's take 2 people, one that has only seen textbooks their whole life and one that lived in the real world their whole life. The one that lived in the real world their whole life would be very good at the real world. The one that lived in textbooks would be great at taking exams and knowing everything theoretical in the textbook. They will have a difficult time crossing, right? But we go through textbooks to get to the real world. Textbooks give us learning in particular types of contexts. Here's this formula, here's this, here's this, here's this. But it never really says, well, now hang on, come over to the real world. Here's what's going on. That if you saw what was going on in the real world, you'd say, oh, is that it? Is that all that's going on? Why don't you just tell me that? Because textbooks are written by academics and the real world is run by practitioners. Practitioners don't want to be academics. Academics don't want to be practitioners, and they never talk to each other. And I think that is what's missing in the real world in terms of, especially education that is meant to be professional, not academic. So a business degree is a professional degree, not an academic degree. So I truly believe it should be taught by pracademics and not academics. A pracademic is somebody who has been trained as an academic but works in the real world, right? So they understand the method of teaching. They understand different different types of approaches to teaching, but that they're not teaching to a textbook and they're not teaching to the real world. They're saying, here is a model, here's how it transports into the real world, here's why it's useful, here's why it's not meant to be a representation of the real world, it's meant to be useful. I think that's a big thing that's missing. But yeah, try to see try to see the easiness in it. I know that sounds, I don't understand it. How can I even begin to see the easiness? Ask yourself where you've seen derivatives before, a first derivative, and say, well, I saw it in university or I saw it in high school. Well, what is a derivative? It's a rate of change. Well, modified duration must be a rate of change in something, right? Compare CFA to master's in finance. Is master's worth it after CFA, or is it useless? Would it be a better decision to do MBA instead? Hang on. I would say that if you have a master's in finance from a well-regarded school, you probably don't need the CFA. But if you don't, then the CFA sort of signals to the market that you're equal with other CFAs. After you have that, I don't think you need a master's in finance. You probably need more of a general MBA, which is a management MBA, to demonstrate that not only do you have an understanding of the field of finance, but now you're management ready. So the MBA could be more of a general management MBA as opposed to a specialized one. Best ways to try and understand topics you have. Already did that. 1 month remaining, CFA level 2. Already went through the whole curriculum once. What is the best study strategy to follow for this last month before the exam? I'm going to answer this for everybody because I'm sure I'll get that question many times. What's the best way to do this? I don't know. I know nothing about you. Here's what I will say. You have the better part of a university career behind you and a high school career behind you. You've gotten A's. You've done well in exams. What did you do? Do that. So your technique for getting an A may be slightly different than my technique for getting an A, which may be slightly different than somebody else's technique for getting an A. How you learn is sort of unique to you. Now, it may pattern match with a whole bunch of people. There may be some best practices, but overall, it's what you did. You've already gotten a lot of A's in your life. You don't need me to tell you how to get another one. You've already done it. What did you do to get it? Think of the last exam you took where you got an A and think, well, what did I do to get that A? Do that. That's what you do. If you say, well, I really studied, well, there you go. What did you do? Do that. It may be different for me. It may be different for the person beside you, or it may be the same, but it's not as if you're brand new to this and you've never in your life seen an exam and you're thinking, this is so new and it's so foreign to me, studying, learning, exams. Where did this come from? You've done it your whole life. Whatever has made you successful in the past, you do that again. There might be some thinking that, well, this is so uniquely different. No, it's not. Here's some content written on pages. You must learn this content written on pages. Walk into a room and write an exam. Sounds like every exam I've ever had in university. And with 8 years of university behind me, 9 years maybe, when I was a student, I've written well over probably 150 exams. If I don't know what works by this point in time, I'm just not learning. I'm failing the one big thing, which is learning to learn. You should know. I think you want to hear it from somebody else so that you think, well, what if I'm doing it wrong? You're not doing it wrong. What you are probably doing the same things that have made you successful in the past. You're on the right path. Whatever that path happens to be, it's on the right path for you. I have no secret that I'm hiding behind my back that I'm going to pull out 3 weeks before the exam and say, here's how it's done. And you think, oh my God, this is great. There is no faster way to learn. It's about putting in the time. If there was a better way to learn, it would have found its way into the education system a long time ago. Professors are not holding back the secrets or the keys to the gate, and letting you figure it out yourself. They've given you the best tools that they've given you. And you've gotten A's and you've gotten B's. I know the thumbs up is when I do this. There's something particular about, it's not doing it anymore. There's something particular about this interface for some reason that puts a thumbs up there. Yeah, so, some of these questions that you're going to ask me today, you already know the answers to. The one thing I can say is, the closer you get to the deadline, the more you lean in on it, because you don't want this to be your second last time of writing a level 2 exam. You want this to be the last time to write an exam. So you just lean into it, right? Putting in the time is the secret. And it's not a secret, but that's what it is. It's putting in the time. Every NFL player has put in hours of time. Every NBA player, hours of time. Every doctor, every dentist, every lawyer, hours of time. Putting in the time. There is no shortcut when it comes to learning. No shortcut. All right. Somebody has the same question. Already answered that. Explain the difference between long calendar spread versus short calendar spread. The long and the short pertain to the longer dated option. So if you sell and then further out you buy, you're long. If you buy and then further out you sell, you're short, because your position will depend on when the first option expires. What do you have left, a long or a short position? Right? So that's what it's for. What kind of views these positions are expressing? If you're going out of the money, whether on puts or on calls, and you're doing long calendar spreads, at the heart, it's a theta play with a delta hedge. What you're saying is that the short option's time value will expire faster than the long option's time value, and I'll get theta. I could get theta by just selling the front option, but what if delta kills me? I know I'll hedge out delta with the other option, so that I should be fairly inoculated from delta if things go very, very bad. Once you have delta out of the way, you can lever that thing up, right? And since you're long and short, you're not going to require a whole lot of margin to get that done. But if you're long and then short, when the first one expires, your margin requirements are going to spike dramatically. The the purpose is primarily theta with out of the money options. The other expression, which I think is a weird way to do it, I think there are better ways to do it, is on delta. October, November expirations, and you have a company that reports in between the two options. Before it reports, it's not going anywhere. It's under pressure. So I'll sell this call, but I think when it reports earnings, it's going to be really good. Everyone's concerned it's going to be bad. I think it's going to be really good. It's going to go up. I'll buy this call. The reason I'm selling this call is to help finance this call. So you could look at it that way, as in, this stock is not going up until the event. The event happens after this expiration, but before that expiration. I think there are better ways to get that done rather than the calendar spread. The biggest purpose of the calendar spread is theta for out of the money calls, out of the money puts, because you're delta neutral, and then you can use leverage. So this is a good example of answering the question earlier is, how do you understand things that are, that seem difficult? Is if you know how it's applied in the real world, it becomes really obvious. It's like, oh, well, that makes a lot of sense, right? So it's getting that side of the story. How complementary is applied option series for level 3 candidate? Well, I just explained it. The book doesn't really do a good job of explaining the conditions under which you would use a long or short calendar spread. It it attempts to in a very academic way, but it doesn't really give a real world description. So there's only two, I think, no, there's only one reading at level 3 on options, but it's option strategies. I think the applied level probably does a lot more on option strategies than the book does. But you know, there is only one reading at level 3. It's not as if half of level 3 is option strategies, and you're going to need more. The applied options goes a lot further. It is actually applied. It is, how would we do this in the real world, right? And in the strategy itself is not that interesting. None of the strategies are. It's not that you can learn the strategy anywhere. That's easy to do. You know, bull spreads, bear spreads, calendar spreads, straddle, strangle. I mean, you can learn the mechanics of it, and level 3 does teach you a lot of those strategies. What it leaves out is how absolutely difficult it is to find the underlying to do it on. Just because you could do a straddle doesn't mean you should do a straddle on everything. It's, you got to find the right underlying. So when you're looking at an underlying, you're saying, well, okay, now that I know about this stuff, what's the right strategy to use in combination with this stuff? So it's all the learning, I think, happens in the interaction between the strategy and the underlying. Level 3 gives you all these strategies. Well, great, you can memorize that, right? It's when you bring the underlying in, it's like, well, which strategy now, right? And of the 2 or 3 possibilities, which one makes more sense? So that's more of a, it's more of an art. Let's go here. Assuming basic finance knowledge and an applied level subscription. Consistent engagement with your content seems more effective than university education for excelling in finance field. Well, the applied level is what you would learn in CFA applied. So if you're going through the CFA side and you're saying, well, I don't quite get this. As I said, sometimes seeing how it applies in the real world, you would then say, oh, okay, now I understand what's going on. That's what the applied level is meant to do. It's meant to be a companion for the CFA. Or said another way, it's a whole new level, right? That is supposed to get you from the textbook to the real world. So if you're saying that you seem to find that it's more effective than university education for the finance field, it's not surprising. Most finance departments in universities are still very theoretical, are still very textbook driven. It's very rare to find a finance professor who, number one, has any experience whatsoever in the real world. I was at one university where the derivatives professor had never traded a single derivative in his life. But there he was. Why? Because it's textbook driven. All textbook driven. It's like, here's how all these things, here's what all these things are. Here's how you value them. Here's how you price them. When would you use them? I don't know. Well, isn't that the whole thing? Like, when would you use them? If they're all valued the same way, I can rely on the fact that no matter where I use it, it's going to be valued the same way. I don't need to know how it's valued. That's less interesting than when would I use this? How would I express a view on this commodity other than using a futures contract, let's say? How would I do that? So yeah, I think it's a valid point. Is if you're saying, I want to be far more practical in the real world, yeah, I think it's a fair point. Recently passed August level 3. Many thanks to you. Portfolio and risk management. Do you use IBKR and Excel? I do. Any other software tools you use? Not really. I find it difficult to manage even a few options positions and risk manage their Greeks. Applied subscriber, and I've been through a good portion, but not in all cases. You've spoken directly on this already. Available liquidity is probably the biggest thing you want to look at. When you get to, I think it's like below 5%, that little yellow bar shows up around available liquidity. That tells you to take action. As long as that yellow bar is not on, you'll be okay. When the yellow bar comes on and you got to take action, you should have strategies of what you're going to do. A lot of times you can get rid of it by turning, short puts into spreads. So let's say you sold a put at $50 and the little yellow thing flashes on. Even just going down to $40 and buying a couple of cheap puts at $40 can clear that up. So you can always fix your margin issues, not by having to take losses and close positions, but by turning, positions that have sort of unlimited risk or undefined risk into positions that have defined risk by turning, short calls and short puts into spreads. You can usually do quite well on that. You can also increase your cash position, lower your risk, and get rid of that yellow line by selling calls on stocks you own. That actually reduces your beta exposure. So there's a lot of things you can do in risk management if you're watching your available liquidity. I think you can ignore a lot of the management of all of the little Greeks if you just say, look, I'm going to move up to just managing liquidity. And if you can manage liquidity, you're good. FRM, a good addition over CFA? Well, for what? Right? It's a good addition if you're going into banking. Absolutely. If you're going into corporate finance in the Treasury Department and corporate finance, sure, it's a good addition. If you're going to be an asset manager running a portfolio, less so. Not that it's going to be useless, but a lot of FRM will be way out there for you. It's like, well, I'm not really interested in all of this stuff. There might be, one section of one level that you might find interesting, and the rest is, do I really want to go through all of this, right? So is it a good addition? For what? It's always the for what, right? And if you're going to be dealing mostly in securities, asset management, or security analysis, not really. Failed level 2 in August by a hair's breadth. And I saw a lot of those. Super motivated in preparing the exam. However, now I find it difficult to motivate to redo. Any advice on how to get the motivation back? Well, you take some time off. You just take a week or two to yourself. You will come to it. Look, there are some days where I don't feel like doing a damn thing, where I'm working on something and I just get so sick of it. It's like, I don't want to do this anymore. My attitude turns bad really quick. And I know that if I just leave it for a day or two, I'll wake up, in a day or two, and I'll think, okay, let's get back at it. I feel better. My mind is clear. I feel a lot better about it now. Right. So just give it a day or two. Give it some time. You'll come back to it. You failed by a hair. Well, you didn't pass it by a mile, right? You failed by a hair. So maybe it's just an opportunity to look at it and say, well, if I got one more point, I would have passed. Yeah, but just barely passing is not the same as knocking it out of the park. So you can think, no, this time I'm going to knock it out of the park. I got that far this time. Give me 6 more months. I'm going to kill this thing. I'm going to be in the top 10%, which will set you up very nicely for level 3. Well, actually, let me retract that. There's not a lot from level 2 that travels forward to level 3. Level 1 to 2 is important. Level 2 to 3 is less important because some things just end. There's no more quant. There's no more FRA. There's no more equity analysis. It's all about portfolio construction and portfolio management. So probably not for level 3, but probably set you up well for whatever eventual job that you would take, because then you would probably recall more of the valuation techniques that you learned in equity, or be more in touch with. Well, actually, you know what? Level 2 portfolio management would travel well to level 3. Yeah, that would travel well. Yeah, okay. Well, half and half. I take back what I took back when I took it back. and I put half of it back out there, if you can follow that. But yeah, whenever you're feeling demotivated about something, you had it within you to take this program anyways. You had it within you to take level 1 and pass. You had it within you to take level 2. That doesn't go away. That ambition, that drive inside you doesn't go away. You'll get back to it. How should I approach level 3 for August 25? Like subject order and also timelines to keep my journey easy. Yeah, I don't know if I would say easy. I'd say less stressful as I am starting early. Well, there are two ways to look at this. You can do the easy stuff first and then save the hard stuff, or do the hard stuff and then go to the easy stuff. I seem to think that if I'm not going to make it, it's not because the easy stuff. It's because of the hard stuff. So let me find out right away. Let's do the hard stuff first. If it's not doable, I want to do the hard stuff first. If I need more time, I'd rather have more time with the hard stuff. That would be fixed income, capital market expectations, and probably the derivative section. The 3 readings there. There's options, there's forwards, futures, and then there's currency. 3, 4, 5, 9 readings overall are the more challenging ones. Start there. Start with fixed income, right? That's a big section, and it's probably the most challenging one. And then if you can knock out the hard sections and you only have 3 months left, well, the rest is easy, right? The rest is easy. High level skills one should focus on while doing CFA, like in Excel or Python. There is no testing for that. No, to be better than our competition, which will give us an edge while job interviews. Well, sure. Anything extra you can go in with, saying that I'm proficient in Python and Excel. I mean, at this point, with the business degree behind you, hopefully, and any kind of work behind you, if you don't have a sufficient level of Excel, it's like, what have you been using? But yeah, definitely. If you have the applied level, the financial modeling module, I think is valuable. I've benchmarked against all the major financial modeling programs out there. The one thing, I use real data. We're using Costco. It is real data, and we're not using one of the brand name financial modeling courses out there only uses manufactured data, not real data. Well, manufactured, it's not going to help me. The other one that uses real data uses analyst projections for their projections. It's like, well, what's the point? I mean, if you're just going to use JP Morgan's projections for sales growth, what was the point of that? Like, so this is nothing more than manufactured data in the end, because I'm not really coming up with them. For the financial modeling that I do, we start with Costco and we come up with everything. We go from analyst to modeler. Seeing that done will give you a very good, I think, a very good leg up on competition. Because then you can say, not only can I create the assumptions that go into the financial model, but I can do the financial model. And once I'm done, I can do either a comparative or discounted cash flow valuation. Yes, I can do it all. Not that you would do it all, but you could. Not CFA related, but just a thought. PE ratio for SPX has lost some of its meaning due to the concentration in big tech. S&P 500 equal weighted index might be more useful. As far as determining the level of valuation on the index itself, on the portfolio itself, sure, I would agree with that. But as far as determining your risk level, if you look at the equal weighted S&P and say, oh, okay, this is great, you would then have to be in an ETF that is an equal weighted S&P. But if you say, I like that, and then simply buy SPY, That doesn't help you for risk management because SPY has the exposure to all of these other big tech. And if big tech goes out of favor, SPY's coming down. If it's dragging it up, it will drag it down. So the danger of looking at the equal weighting and say, oh, everything is valued fine, let me buy SPY, is that you're missing the point that SPY is not equal weighted. So there'd be a misalignment of risk. But if you're looking at the equal weighted index, you would want to be in an equal weighted S&P ETF. Preparing for CFA level 1 using your videos. I mean, stuck on quant methods for 2 months. Do I still do the quant videos? I don't think so. And my exam is in May. When you say I think you mean markmeldrum.com, not this guy in particular. My struggle with this section is starting to affect my confidence. While I understand how to approach the questions, I still don't feel fully comfortable. Should I move on to other topics? Yeah, move on to other topics. Here's what you're going to see. You're going to go to fixed income and you're going to calculate the present value of a bond. And then you're going to say, okay, now that I see it being done, I know what this is. Oh, this is present value from quant. Okay, I get it now. I get it. So maybe just seeing the quantitative analysis done in another context will then help you understand what you're doing in quant by saying, I get it now. I've seen it done somewhere else, so now I get it. Yeah, I get it. So sure, move on. I mean, I'll be appearing for level 1 in February. Will there be enough time to prepare considering I'll be studying full time? I don't know. You're asking me to make an assessment of your ability to get it done without me knowing a single thing about your ability or your willingness to put in the time or your I guess your study techniques. I know nothing about how you're going to do it. A better way of saying is for a person of university level ability, is it possible from now to February to prepare for level 1 if I'm putting in more time than the average? Yes, it is. Absolutely. But is that you? I don't know if that's you. Only you can answer that. A lot of people say, look, I'll put in 3-4 hours a day, but when it comes right down to it, they don't have it in them to put in 3-4 hours a day. So you can say you're going to do it, but will you do it? Do you have the follow through? Are you the kind of person who will put in the time? If you are, and you're a student from the university system with mid B average or greater, yeah, I think you can. Given the presence of providers, this is a multi-part question here. And I lost it. Where'd it go? There's a whole bunch of questions here. Let me speed up. Presence of providers like Kaplan, Mark Meldrum. Do you think new entrants can still thrive in this market? What gaps, if any, could new players address to find success? I'm just going to read them all here. What unique value would new providers need to offer to compete with established names? Could specialization in topics, custom study plans, distinct teaching methods help them find a niche? Yeah. Individual instructors, personal brands compete against large organizations. How do you have a personal brand without having been in the industry, right? What strategies could they use to build credibility, attract students, and differentiate themselves in this crowded space? How important is pricing when students decide between well-known providers and independent instructors? Could independent educators offer personalized? Just keeps going here. Okay, I get what you're doing here. You're hitting me up with a whole bunch of ideas for a business plan that you're trying to create. In the paid space, it's tough now because of the fees to access the content. You have to be of a certain size. No startup is of a certain size. So the barriers to entry are a little bit higher. Paying an unknown entity is a tough thing. You're going to have some kind of demonstration of your ability or proof of your ability. If you go to YouTube and you type in, CFA lessons, you'll see dozens of names of people putting videos out there for free, all with, some of them are a year old, and they were advertising, here's my site where you can learn. You go to the site, it no longer exists. The views are low. Um, it's it's a tough space. 10 years ago, it was an easier space, but today it's tougher and tougher, because you have a huge crowded space on the YouTube side, attempting to get a foothold by putting free stuff out there, and everybody's about the same. I do it every now and then. I'll sit and I'll go through a couple hours of watching this and this to see if there are any really interesting people out there, any stars that I think that, wow, let's hire this person. Not really. A lot of heavy accents, so it's hard to follow. The exam is taught in English, or given in English. The books are in English, so you have to learn it in English. And sometimes you're listening to someone going, I don't even understand what they're saying. A lot that you can tell why they weren't successful, that they're still trying. They don't quite know what they're still trying to teach themselves, or that's all they know is the answer to that one question, but they don't really know the field. This is not an easy thing to do. Teaching, right? You may think, well, I know this, I should be able to teach it. I passed an exam, I should be able to teach it. To teach at a university level, it's not enough to say, I passed an exam. If that were the case, all of your first year professors would be second year students, because why would a university want to pay more than they have to? You have to demonstrate that you have a broad knowledge of the field, a broad knowledge of the field, to be able to teach, because you can't just teach A plus B equals C. You have to be able to teach everything that is adjacent to that statement as well, any variation to that statement as well, and you have to be able to manipulate that statement to create statements that otherwise were not very obvious or intuitive. For a practical designation like CFA, which is practical, you're getting people ready for the real world. It's not enough to repeat what's written in a textbook. You have to bring it to the real world, which means, unless you have some real world knowledge, all you are is just somebody who's read something and is telling me what it says, so it saves me from reading it. But I'm not getting a lot of insight into what you're doing. You're repeating what's in the book. For a lot of the stuff I see on YouTube, that's what I see. I say, okay, well, I don't see, this person speaks well, but I don't see that they're going outside of the book. That's written in the book, that's written in the book, that's written. All your points are written in the book. You're really just repeating to me what's written in the book, but you're not bringing it to life. You're not bringing me in to the real world in any way. So it is to rise above that noise, you need to be a lot better. And this is one of those industries where, especially with teaching, there is no 25-year-old that's going to replace me. It doesn't work that way. It's the ones that I would be more afraid of are the ones that have, a good academic background and 20 years of practical experience. Okay, now I'm a bit concerned about that person replacing me, but there is no 25 or 30-year-old that's going to replace me, because you haven't seen enough of the finance world to be able to do that. It is tougher now. I think candidates are far more interested in not just who can repeat the book to me, but who's actually doing this stuff, who's actually out there. And here's a good case in point. Let's say that there is two classes, never mind professors, two classes on valuation. In this classroom, you have a very well published academic, 40, 50 research papers to his name, all in A journals, 4 textbooks to his name, and that's the class. And you think, wow, okay, well, that's something. Over here is Warren Buffett. He doesn't have a CFA, doesn't have academic papers to his name, has never written a textbook, but he's going to teach valuation in that class. This highly lettered PhD is going to teach valuation in this class. Which one are you walking into? Right? Which one are you walking into? So it's not enough to take a book and read one page and say, okay, I know what that's saying. Here's what this page is saying. Okay, well, what does that mean? So what? You gotta have the so what. So I think the bar today I'd say more than 10 years ago, the bar today is higher. That doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means you should at least do some kind of competitive analysis. And rather than saying, well, there's this name, this name, this name, is, well, what do they do? What is it that they do that makes them that way? And where's the gap in everything that's being provided? I don't know where I would say in the CFA space, I don't know where the gap is. Everyone has some degree of live classes. Everyone has some degree of video. Everyone has some degree of mock exams, question banks, etc. So it really comes down to who will prepare you. Let's back up. I don't think the question anymore is about who's going to prepare me best for the exam. It's a matter of who's going to prepare me best to be successful in a career. Because why are you doing this? You know, whenever we're doing something, it is always important to ask why. And then when you get your answer, ask why that. Why am I doing this? I want the 3 letters. Well, why do you want the 3 letters? Because I want a job. Well, why? When you ask why, you get to the heart of the matter is that none of it matters unless you're good at what you do. You can get hired, but if you barely pass each exam and you know nothing about the real world in the interview, I guarantee you in any interview you're sitting in, there's going to be the chit chat part before you get to the interview. That's the interview. The interview started the moment you walk in that room, but you won't think that it started. Sit down. Hey, how you doing? What do you think of that Fed move last week? And you feel that it hasn't even started yet. Don't say, oh, I don't know. That's the end of that. You don't know. Yet here you are in this room and you don't know. You don't know what it means. You don't know the implications. You don't have an opinion on the Super Bowl of Wall Street, which is the Fed meeting. What are we doing here? It's going to be a very short interview. So you should be asking, well, which of the many can actually get me into a room where I can do that? And I think the hole in the market was that difference between the textbook and the real world. So I beat you to it because that's what the applied level is meant to do. It's meant to get you in that room. And if they ask you questions about different industries or they ask you questions about the Fed, you have more than a conversational background to be able to engage in an intelligent conversation. And don't fool yourself. That's not chit chat. That's the interview. The interview's already started. It's not chit chat. I can say that there's a huge gap between education in Turkey, master's level, and CFA level 1. I realized I didn't really know the things I thought I knew. That's the most dangerous thing, right? According to Mark Twain. It's not the things you don't know that will get you in trouble. It's the things that you know for sure that just ain't so. Applied level content is truly a rare and invaluable resource. Oh, well, thank you. Failed level 3 4 times. Last time was on the borderline. I'm not having the confidence to give it anymore, but at the same time, I have invested money and time mentally hard on me. Any advice? Well, you're this close. You are that close. For me to determine what's next, I'd have to ask so many more follow-on questions. How did you prepare? What did you know? How did you approach the structured response? Did you prepare on your own? Did you prepare with a group? Did you use a provider? Who did you use? There's so many follow-on questions that I'd have to go with. Level 3 is different. Level 3 is probably the closest to applied that you're going to get, because I mean, let's just take fixed income for example. You have 2 readings on immunization, which is a thing. Some companies will immunize pension plans, some will immunize, some won't immunize, but we have to understand what immunization is. And the different ways in which a company can immunize, because that actually does happen out there. Yield curve strategies, that's huge. Credit strategies, that's huge. And it's probably as in a simplified way. I'm not going to say it's going to make you a great yield curve trader by going through curve strategies, but you will have the language and you will have the strategies down, and you'll understand what it means when somebody says, curve steepener, curve flattener, a curve steepener with duration. You'll understand what those things mean. It's a walk away from the textbook towards the real world. Not all the way there, but far enough outside of the textbook that if you're just teaching this in a textbook way, chances are you're probably not understanding a lot of the concepts, or misunderstanding, or perhaps even learning them wrong. I think level 3 more than anything does require a practitioner, because it is heavily leaning towards the actual application. So yeah, 4 times is too much. 4 times is too many. That whatever you're doing, you need to change something, right? You're repeating the same thing and expecting something different. You need to change something. So, yeah, I'd have follow-up questions for that. English is not my native language, so very rarely I struggle to fully understand what some questions are asking. I know what you mean. Yeah. English is my first language, and sometimes I struggle to understand what the hell some questions are asking with some of the CFA questions, especially end of chapter questions. I read them, I go, I don't even know what you're asking me. I don't even know what this is. Not until I look at the answer will I say, oh, well, okay, well, you're asking it the wrong way. Do you have any suggestions for this? I would say that the material you come across in this industry is not the same thing that you're going to get on the exam. The exam, CFAI is very well aware that this is an international exam. So the questions are read and vetted by people who don't have English as a first language to catch those things. But the questions that you're going to get in people's question banks, on other providers' mock exams, even on CFAI end of chapter questions, are not vetted to that degree. They're written by or written in a way that English is good enough. But again, some of those I read, I go, I don't even know what you're asking me. Like, I couldn't answer this question because I'm not even sure what your question is. So you're not alone on that one. I would say don't use mock exams and question banks as a benchmark of what you'd expect to see on the actual exam. That is, it's well thought of for the actual exam. How is study strategy for L2 compared to L1? Greater reliance on doing rather than dedicating. Yeah, well, level 1 is a lot of declarative knowledge. Know this, know that. Here's a bunch of things you need to know. So it is like a big survey course in finance, right? You have the asset classes, and then you have the tools, economics, quant, things like that, where there is some process involved in it, especially quant. Level 2 is a valuation level. So it's a lot of process, not so much declarative knowledge, but process knowledge. So oftentimes you're not going to memorize your way through that. You got to get your hands dirty. You can memorize your way through level 1 equity, I think, pretty easily without ever having to really solve anything. You can memorize your way through. You're not going to memorize your way through level 2 equity. You have to do problems. You have to do it. So there is no other way around it. It is a process level. So if you barely passed level 1, if you relied on a lot of remembering and memorization, that's not going to get you through level 2. Level 2 will disappoint you if that's your strategy. So give yourself more time and understand that you're going to actually have to spend a lot of hours with figuring things out. Just passed level 1, thanks to you. Do you see the benefit of completing all 3 levels within 18 months? Or do you think I should take my time gaining more work experience? Get more work experience. If I had to choose between the two, work experience always wins, because you're getting a paycheck. They're paying for you at the same time, and you're getting some real world knowledge, which makes what you're reading on the pages have a little bit more life. So yeah, I'd say get, and listen, you can't get the 3 letters until you have the work experience. Right. So what's the point of rushing through 3 exams and saying, okay, well, I still don't have the 3 letters? It still doesn't signal anything to the market. So yeah. If you can get work experience, get work experience. Do you plan to stop teaching CFA since you no longer find it challenging? The jury's out on that one. I don't, when things become really easy, I think, well, what am I needed for? You don't need me for this stuff. And if the technical details are being taken out, it becomes less interesting. But the jury's out on that at this point in time. It's not that I've left CFA. The applied level is saying, okay, well, here's where CFA is, here's where the real world is, and let's draw these links. So I haven't really left. I've just focused more on the applied side of things, which helps on the CFA side of things. It's not, it's not testable material that I'm doing, but it will certainly help you with the testable material. When you actually see it done, you'll say, oh, okay, I get it now. I see why that, I don't know. Will I stop teaching? I don't know. I'm undecided on that, because I have this project I'm working on now, but in a couple of years I might say, okay, well, I've got this under control. This is built out. This is coming along nicely. I might say, I kind of miss some things. Maybe. You never say no. If I were retired and had nothing to do, within 3 months, I'd be involved in something all over again, because I can't just sit around. I'd be doing something else. So why not just keep doing what I'm doing, right? Actually, an entrepreneur, I need to constantly expand my network. I do believe that CFA and FRM curriculum have great value for me, but do you believe that it's a key criteria for an entrepreneur? Well, an entrepreneur in what? Probably not. FRM for an entrepreneur? Probably not. CFA? Corporate finance? Sure. CFA? Probably not. But again, it's an entrepreneur in what? Right? So it's not enough to say entrepreneur. I mean, if you're building a healthcare business, then I think this is a complete waste of time, CFA and FRM. But if you're building a fintech business, I think you should have a good understanding of the language of the industry. It depends on what you're doing, right? Failed level 2, level 1 2 times. Should I even try for a 3rd time? Quant is my worst. I can't answer that. Why did you fail? How much did you fail by? How soon did you start? Did you put in the time? Are you a serious person? Is it something that you'd like to have, or is it something you want to have? Are you doing it because you just want to add letters behind your name, or are you doing it because you're really interested in the field? Do you say, oh, I'm not really that interested in the topic, but I want more letters to be more marketable? There's a whole bunch of reasons to continuing and to stopping. Just to say I failed twice, should I quit? That's nowhere near enough information. If you like the field, if you see yourself building a career in this industry, then don't quit. Figure out what's wrong. Why are you failing? Not telling me that you did is not interesting. Telling me why you did is far more interesting. Why did you fail? Why do you find quant challenging? So answer the why questions, not the what questions, and you'll be able to come up with your own answer. I have a BS in finance and banking. Working as an accounting manager in a hospital, do you believe CFA will benefit me? No. An accounting manager in a hospital? Only if you want to get out of there. But if you like what you're doing, unless you have an idea that you want the top job, the CFO job, which will eventually lead to a CEO job. If that's what you're looking for, then yeah, the CFA will set you apart onto the way to a CFO job. What should be the revision strategy to pass CFA level 1? I've answered this question. Any question that comes up onto what should I do, I've already answered this question. You should do whatever has made you successful in your academic career in the past. CFA level 2 exam, is it better to read the question first or the vignette? Questions first, always. Recently failed CFA level 3, thinking of giving it another shot in August 25. What specialized pathway should I take? I'd say stick with the same thing. Stick with portfolio construction. What's your opinion on someone who just completed CS engineering, plans to pursue the CFA, remains jobless for 3 years to switch to finance? Why would you want to remain jobless? This is not an either or. It's not like you have to give up your job and do this for 3 years. It's not an either or. Why can't you do both? Right? I don't see the either or here. I think it would be silly to give up a career for 3 years for this. Do it at the same time. Do it concurrently. Slightly under the MPS for level 3. Does February 2025 make the most sense? Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Because you're not starting from zero, right? Just wondering how extensive the curriculum changes are. If you stick with portfolio construction, it's not that bad. There's only one woke reading on portfolio on private wealth management that's in the main curriculum, and it's woke. it's woke. If you can hold your nose and get through that one, basically everything is the same. But that reading will shame you. If you think that you want to be a successful person in life, it will shame you for even thinking that you should be successful when there are unsuccessful people. CFA. Stupidest place for it. What should be the revision strategy? Okay, I already did that. What's your recommendation to approach level 2 study techniques? You still don't need me to answer that question. You know the answer to that question. You've had undergraduate courses that were quantitative in nature before. What did you do? How did you get A's? You don't need me for that. The only thing that I can add to that is, there are 2 ways to approach it. The hard topics first, followed by the easy, or the easy followed by the hard. Or distributed learning, a hard and an easy, a hard and an easy, a hard and an easy at the same time. But as far as what you would do, you know the answer to that. You already know the answer to that. Pass level 3 and 2 due to your guidance and help, now part of the applied series. Thank you. Oh, good. Pass level 3 first attempt with the help of your courses. Good. Now I feel lost. What steps should be next? Should I pursue MBA, MSc, or should I continue working? Whoa. What's wrong with the real world? At some point, you have to stop preparing for a life and start living your life. Live your life for a while, right? If we're thinking about next steps, let the world tell you what your next step would be. So, as far as the job that you have, are you promotable? Or do they say, well, you're promotable to a certain level, but then after that, you really do need an MBA? Well, then get them to pay for an MBA. But, live, start living for a little while. Somebody keeps asking, what should be the revision strategy for passing level 1? You already know the answer. I'm not even going to read your question anymore. How to choose a career inside finance? Well, what do you like? Sometimes it's not a matter of choosing the career. Sometimes it's a matter of what's available. And in a career, you can adapt and learn to love the career that you're in. So sometimes it's not just a matter of, well, I want to be here. It's a matter of, well, I want to be great, and I could be great in any number of places. So I don't know how I would choose a career. I think I would start with, well, I know I don't want to do these things. And then after that, I'd be open to variations on a theme. Recently completed level 2 exam. Right now I'm working as a personal banking associate at TD. I want to move to the core finance field. What would you recommend? I'd recommend you speak to somebody within TD about that, and somebody in HR or your manager about that, because they would have the pathway for you. And being that I'm not familiar with TD's pathways or their tracks, their promotional tracks, I couldn't answer that, but I think that's where you would start with, is within TD itself. Taking your course and it helped pass level 1, but barely, since I got hospitalized for a month before the exam. Should I move forward to level 2 or revise everything? Move forward to level 2. You review as necessary, right? Review opportunistically. When you hit something, you go, oh, I forget this, then review. But lots of things will just come back to you. Fail level 3 August. Can I take February? Yes, you can. How much overlap is between August 24 and portfolio pathway February 25th? Almost all of it. Almost all of it is identical. Failed level 3 last week. Still shocked. I did so poorly. I did all your stuff, all online sessions, 7+2 mocks, average 55.75. Could I be penalized for too long answers? When you start writing a lot, you open yourself up to saying something wrong, right? It's, if in 15 words you don't have the answer right, you don't have the answer right. But if you have the answer right in 15 words and you write 30, the other 15 might open the door for the grader to go, whoa, that's not right. And now calls into question everything else, right? I would have to know more than that. When it said I did so poorly, what is poorly? And you've done, there are two things, right? There's process and there's knowledge. You got to walk in the room with knowledge. I can help you with the process on the structure response, but in the end, you got to walk into that room with the knowledge in your head. Could that be it, right? Sounds like someone's in the house. Just passed level 1 and enrolled for level 2. Want to switch to Mark Meldrum for material. Can you talk a bit about how MM works, especially applied level? I can make a decision and take it up. It's such a broad question. Can you talk a bit how it works? I'm not sure what you mean by how it works. How the subscription works, what it is that we do. So, like it's just such a broad concept. We basically do what everyone else does. I just think we do it better. So we have videos for every reading. We have end of chapter question videos for every reading. We have a Q bank. We have mock exams. We have live office hours that As you get closer to the exam, there's a whole bunch of live sessions where you can just show up and you just ask questions. What's this? What's that? Explain this, explain that. The subscription is a 1 fee to pass, which means if you don't pass, we're not going to charge you again. If you don't pass, you don't pass, right? You just reschedule another exam and we extend you to that exam window. The applied level you pay for once. It has no expiration. It never expires. So it's 1 fee. If you take it with the CFA subscription, it's another 320 as opposed to 440. It's 320 and it never expires. And in there is a lot that can help you with, especially at level 2. The financial modeling lines up exactly with what you're doing at level 2. Lines up exactly. Looking at Costco, looking at its 10K, looking at how would we model this, how would we model that, and it requires you to have an understanding of deferred revenue. You better understand what deferred revenue is. How do we account for that in our statements? How does that affect the cash flow statement? For all the schedules, cost of goods sold, or the cost schedule, the relationships between the working capital accounts and either revenue or cost of goods sold. So everything you saw in FRA level 1 and some things you see in FRA level 2, some things that you see there, especially when we start getting to categories like others. Whenever you see other, there's something going on in there. And then there's other comprehensive income, which we have to understand what goes into other comprehensive income. You get a lot of that at level 2. And then for portfolio construction, there's a lot in there on different types of trade setups. Yeah, I think it could help a lot at level 2. It helps a lot at level 3. I don't know. See, it's hard for me to answer because I don't know what you mean about. Can you tell me how it works? What do you mean by it works? So that's sort of where I'm lost. Appearing for level 2, November 30th, November, 30 days to go. Gave first mock today, scored less than 50%. Kindly help me. What can I do? That's not out of the realm of normal. When you first start mock exams, it's not going to be that great. But as each day goes by, I'm getting allergies here. Each day goes by and you study more and more, that knowledge consolidates and you get tighter and tighter in your knowledge. Don't be detracted. You got 30 days to go and you did one mock exam. Don't worry about that. Just keep leaning in. How do you grade constructed response on the mocks? There's a particular answer. There is a structure to the answer, and there's a particular answer. There's a model answer that the grader has. The grader is an expert in that question and only grades that question. And we'll read your answer, and the grader knows enough in reading your answer to go, yep, okay, you're saying what you need to say. 50% done with material for level 1, sitting for the exam in May. You got lots of time. Is this a decent pass, a decent pace? Yes, it is. I want to leave a lot of time to master all the practice problems on your site. Yeah, you're way ahead of time. Score consistently 60 to 75% on my mock exams for level 1. I finished everything and keep repeating quizzes. It seems like I'm stuck. Well, when you look at the answers of what you got wrong, is it obvious? Like when you read, you go, oh, that was stupid. Or do you say, okay, I'm going to have to learn that. And, oh, okay, I'm going to have to learn this. But of the ones you get wrong when you debrief, about half of them, do you say, you're asking for least? I said greatest. Because sometimes it's the wording of the question, which is least likely, and you read the answers and you say, oh, this will happen. Yeah, but that's most likely. It's asking for least likely, and you just looked at it, you go, I answered that wrong. Slow down. I'd say in the mock exams or in answering questions, just slow down. You're not going to run out of time because there's too much to read, but you will mess up badly if you attempt to speed read. Okay? Slow down and see what that does. Read the question. Make sure you answer The question that is being asked. Finishing level 3 at 29 considered too late? No. Planning to switch to an analyst role around that age and wondering if it's too late to make the transition? No. No, it's not. Even after clearing level 2 exam with more than 90, it feels like I lack an understanding of the real world. What skill should I start learning along Python, Excel, macros? Those are all methods. Python's not going to make you understand finance any better. Excel macros is not going to make you understand finance any better. Same with SQL, not going to make you understanding finance any better. If you have the applied level, follow along with the financial modeling. That'll bring you from analyst to modeler. That's what you want, right? But Python, yeah, it's a nice skill to have, but it won't help you understand finance anymore. Good strategy is to memorize level 1 formulas last week's before the exam in the short-term memory, but you seem to know them by heart. Should I try to put them in long-term memory? Well, some of them will be in long-term memory if you repeat them enough times. But what's the point of putting them in long-term? A formula is something you can look up, right? Why, knowing that I need a formula, okay, I want to, I looked at Netflix earnings last week and I was going to calculate the present value of the growth opportunity. What's the price of Netflix as a zero growth company so that we could determine whether or not we want to pay that multiple. Well, I know that there exists a formula for the present value of a growth opportunity, but off the top of my head, it's like, okay, well, what was it again? It was it was an annuity plus, I just looked it up. Knowing that it exists is good enough for me. I can look up the rest. Was no big deal, right? So I don't know that some things will go in a long-term memory because you use them a lot. Other times, who cares? Have an interview on phone call with a real estate company for fund analyst. Real estate company for a fund analyst. Well, that could mean a couple of things. It's a very successful real estate company and it has a whole bunch of cash and it wants to invest it and it has a fund and you're a fund analyst, or it is a fund that primarily invests in real estate. If it's a fund that primarily invests in real estate, you better understand real estate. So in the applied level, there is a whole sector on real estate and all the REITs are covered in there. I cover residential REITs, office REITs, retail, industrial, and timber REITs. You can impress them with, your knowledge of where hardwoods and softwoods grow and the difference between natural stands and plantations. All right. So cycle through that. Then you can you at least have the same language that they have. What do you think of CFA and CPA combo? Yeah, especially for if you're the CFA has two broad sides, right? Financial analyst and asset manager. For asset manager, For financial analyst, yeah, I think it's helpful. Seems like CFA is extremely technical compared to CPA. CFA is financially oriented. CPA is accounting oriented. Now, CPA is very concerned with producing the financial statements. CFA is more concerned with interpreting the financial statements. Easier to interpret if you know how they're produced, right? If possible, can you give studying tips? Like once you said read questions first and go to readings. I don't know that that's a study tip. And I can't think of a lot off the top of my head as far as study tips. Usually, whatever tips there are embedded within the videos themselves. If you attend the office hours for level 1, level 2, level 3, that's usually where you'll get some of that information. Possible you can did that just fail level 3. Let's try to not use the word fail. You did not pass. And that's not me being progressive and inclusive in my language at all. There is a difference between saying failed and did not pass. There is a blue box around your grade. And that blue box oftentimes is overlapping with the minimum passing score. What that is saying is that statistically speaking, there is no difference between your score and the minimum passing score at a 90% confidence interval. That had you taken the exam with a different set of questions, there's a probability you would have passed it. So it's not that you failed, it's that you did not pass. You statistically did not pass. If that blue box is way below the minimum passing score and there's no overlap, then you failed the exam. But have a look at where that thing is. I think a better language to use here is did not pass, because that's the deal with these exams that ask a small subset of questions about a whole body of knowledge. Is you could fail to pass simply because of just the nature of where the questions landed. Had you had, well, if you didn't ask me these three and ask me something from over here, I probably would have done it. So you can know 80% of the content, but still only score 65% because the exam ended up being skewed on the 20% you didn't know. So I don't know that asking fewer questions is a better measure of your understanding of the content. I think asking more questions would be. But the exam went from more questions to fewer questions. How would you suggest approaching February 25th level 3 exam with all material change? Not all material change. If you stick with portfolio construction, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. Is finance by extension, CFA, an application of applied financial mathematics? No. 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 Not an extension. Parts of it, maybe here and there, sure, but no. Graduated this year with a bachelor's in software engineering. Really interested to pursue a non-technical career in finance. How would you advise someone with no academic or professional background in finance to approach the study and prepare for level 1? Level 1 is meant to be introductory. You don't need a business background. If you have a business background, great. You're probably halfway through the content already, because you've seen the stuff before. If you don't have a business background, it's learnable. It's not such abstract stuff that unless you had 4 years with it, you won't get it. It's completely learnable. So you'll be fine. Planning to write up the level 3 August. Most recommended month to start, January, February. I don't know that I would say, January over February by far. I don't. I mean, if you said January or May, January. But if you're saying, should I start January 9th or January 15th? What do you say? Which one? They're, if January 31st or February 1st, I think I'd be indifferent between them. I would say that you'd want to give yourself more time than less. With 2 days to go before the exam, if you could buy an extra week, how much would you pay for that, right? Well, it's free right now to start a week earlier. It's free. So I would seem to think more time than less makes sense. Someone with no academic or professional background in finance to approach the industry and prepare for CFA level 1. Oh, that was already part of the upper question. Learn the CFA topics in more depth. What is the best textbook in your experience for equities, financial statement analysis, statistics? CFA text. CFA's already done it. Almost ready for August 2024 level 1. I had to cancel. How would you approach your study strategy for the May 20? Same way. Practice question. Same. Whatever you were doing for August 2024, that is what you'll keep doing. Just the same way. Give me a second here. I just gotta. I'll wait for that to go a little bit more. 128, 1228, 1120. Okay. Just need to know what Costa Rica time is. Used to get above 80% marks in objective type questions. However, I failed in August level 3. Marks in 50%, ethics 30%. I have registered February 25. Kindly advise where I should focus. Um, yeah, I get what you're saying. Sometimes the questions, especially at level 3, you don't have that many questions, and you have a whole curriculum that it is sometimes hard to test all the concepts. So it ends up being so narrow that sometimes it's just where the spaces are in your knowledge. Um, I will say that every year there's always one section that they choose to make excessively difficult for no other reason than to make it difficult. There's always one section every year that is excessively difficult, and on the exam, there's always at least 2 questions, one in the first session, one in the second, that are written excessively difficult. So sometimes it's knowing when to walk away. I may have to do something here. Give me 1 minute. I got to listen to this message and then potentially respond. I got work being done at my house in Costa Rica, so I think this has to do with it. Just give me a second here. Okay, nothing I have to deal with. I'm being told that somebody who's doing work in Costa Rica is not there yet. Surprise, surprise. You don't have to tell me that. Somebody was supposed to be there at 11 to do work, and I said 12:30, 1 o'clock, maybe. So that was just a message saying they're not there yet. I know. I know. I know. If anyone is on right now from Costa Rica, you know exactly what I mean. The time is not the time. The time is a suggestion of which I will show up at some point after this time. It could be 2 hours, it could be 2 days, but I will not be there before this time. That's what that's what an appointment means in Costa Rica. When you have a time, it's like, don't show up before this time, but anytime after. Um, okay, I don't have to deal with that one either. It's a busy day here of stuff I don't have to deal with. Started preparation for CFA level 1 recently. I don't know about your classes, and I subscribe to a coaching, taking weekend classes. They are teaching from Swayzer. Problem is consistency with study, and I'm studying CFA curriculum materials, which is very lengthy and is taking so much time. I'm planning to give the exam next year, and I want deep study. I'm not sure what the question is in there. And scroll down and see if it continues on, but it doesn't. I'm not sure what the question is. You're taking classes with Schrazer material, but I don't see a question other than a statement. So if it is a question, just ask later on. Does your team view and provide constructive feedback on the constructed mocks for level 3? Do you mean that do we have personal grading? No. The answers are provided along with instructions on how to grade yourself, and then we have walkthrough sessions, which allow you to grade yourself as well. Will you ever admit that Tom Lee's been more right than you give him credit for? Oh, I can be just as right as Tom Lee. I could be just as right. I could. Market's going up. I could say that every day. Market's going up. Market's going up. Market's going up. Market spends 70% of their time going up. Doesn't take much to be right 70% of the time. Just be a permabull. If you're a permabull, you'll be right 70% of the time without even trying. There it is. So I can be right. But he says the same thing all the time. Well, if you're a perma bear, you're right 30% of the time, 20 to 30% of the time. If you're a perma bull, you're right 70% of the time. Which one? Well, right there. It's not hard. It's not hard to be as right as he is. My criticism is that he only has one story. He only has one story, and he takes the highest valuation for visibility. I mean, I can do that. Look at everybody's list. Okay, there's 6,000, 6,100. Market's going to 6,100. Now, when everyone looks at the list of projections, my name's on the top all the time. I get visibility, 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 visibility. Doesn't have to go to 61. The market went up. That's good enough. 70% of the time, I'm right. My name, my name, my name. Top of mind, top of mind, top of mind. You see that? It's about marketing. It's about marketing. I could do the same thing. You could do the same thing. Just start saying every day, the market's going up, market's going up, market's going up. 7 out of 10 times you'll be right. Or over the long term, you will be right. No one will remember the days you said the market's going up and it went down. They'll just look back over 2 years ago. That guy said it was going up and it went up. It may have gone down and then up, but you could be just as right. You could be just as right by being a perma bull. So have at it. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of thinking to be right 70% of the time. The market is a wave. Just ride the wave, right? Can you suggest which pathway one should choose for? By the way, when you say more right than wrong, if you're a perma bull, are you right, or are you just coincident? Right? If I say the market's going up, well, markets have always gone up. Market's going up. Am I right, or am I right? Have I done analysis that made me right, or am I just coincident? It's like, wow, it was, I mean, a 5-year-old could have said the same thing. If you train a 5-year-old to say the market is going up, you would say, well, that 5-year-old is really right. Look at that. They're absolutely right. So, if you only have one song, and you sing that song every day, and the world generally sings along with the same tune, which pathway one should choose for level 3 portfolio construction, or the portfolio construction management pathway? What advice would you give for CFA all levels, like what to take care of, like really important things that one aspirant must take care of that is non-negotiable? I don't know what that means, take care of. What do you mean? I don't know what that means. If you're talking about just CFA, let's just generalize it. You're talking about learning in general. Learning in general is about putting in the time, period. If you're unwilling to put in the time, don't start the process. But it's all of it's just about putting in the time. Private market and wealth management will be improved by next year, or as PM recommended. I don't know. I don't know if they'll be improved. I don't see how they can't. I don't see having the ability to look at it now and say, I mean, is this really where we want to be? So I'm sure it'll be improved over time. That woke bandwagon is gone. It's driven by, and they're rather late to be jumping on the bandwagon. That I think by next year it'll be like, well, what are we doing here? I mean, that was so yesterday. So let's just depoliticize and desocialize our content and focus on the learning and not the ideology. Hopefully somebody in there probably says that that's probably a good idea. I don't know. Please guide me for my preparation for CFA level 1, February 25, and I've completed my course. My main question is, how should I start questions, and what provide question can I do? I don't know. How should you start doing? Just start. I don't understand the how should I start? Just start. What questions can you do? I am not understanding this question. I mean, any question that says how should I start is simple. Just start. You just start. How should I start studying? Open the book. Start reading the first word from the first sentence. Just start. I don't know how to answer these questions because I'm not sure exactly what you're asking when you ask that. It's such a broad question. But action. Just let me move these away here a bit. These it's a busy day, and I don't know why. None of them are for me or about me. Passed level 1 August 24, bought your course for level 2 25 last week, and I've just started preparing. How many hours per week should I be targeting? I don't know. I know nothing about you. I guess at this point it would be worth, saying some broad statements. Many of these questions, where should I start? How should I study? How long should it take? You already know the answers to these. You already know yourself. And only you know yourself. You know your ability. You know your willingness to put in the time. You know how quickly you learn or how slowly you learn. You know where your trouble spots are. You know that, well, I'm good with these things, but when it comes to numbers, I'm not so good. You already know all that about yourself. I know nothing about you. So for me to say, here's the strategy, is to say that everybody fits into this one strategy, which is a stupid statement to say because that's not true. It can't possibly be true. You know what has made you successful in the past. You know how much time you had to put in to get A's. You know how you've done on conceptual courses. You know how you've done on numbers courses. You know how quickly you can learn. You know your attention span and how long you can stay in one topic before you start drifting away. You know your willingness to put in the time. You know what your grade point average was in the past. If for 4 years of university you never budged above a C, what makes you think you're going to be any different here? Unless you change what it is that you do. This is no different than any other learning you've done anywhere else. There's no different. The only difference is everything comes down to one exam. You don't get to build your grade across the semester. It's one exam. You already know all the answers for this. I think you might be looking for a different answer. How long will this take? Oh, God, hardly anything. You know, that university stuff, that took a long time. This is nothing. No, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. You all already know the answers to these. So for this, how should you start? You start. You just simply start. I don't know that you had that question in every class on day one that you sat in. Sir, how should we start? I don't think that you had that question. I think you just start. You start. University teaches you stuff. It also teaches you how to think about stuff. And it also teaches you how to learn such that you don't need the university anymore. So if you got out of university saying, I learned the stuff, that's not good enough. You have to also say, I learned the stuff and I know how to think about the stuff. Some things I agree with, some things I don't. So you have this critical thinking. I also have the skill now that if you give me a book, I don't need a professor guiding me along the way. I've learned how to learn. That's the big thing you accomplish in university is you now learn how to learn. You already know how to do all this and all the answers to this. What you have to do is learn the content. But you've learned how to learn and you've learned how to think critically. Now, this is just one part of it. It's just learning content. There's not a lot of critical thinking involved at level 1. It's a lot of declarative knowledge, right? Want to buy the level 3 Access Plus package, but I have not decided on which pathway to take. Portfolio management. But that's me, like portfolio management. Similar review for CFA level 2 and 3 compared to your level 1 review for August. I don't think that it's needed. I don't know that I said very much in the level 1 that I would change for level 2 and level 3. I think it's pretty much the same thing. I could probably just put out one video. Exam is done. You got your results. What are we going to do now? Right? I think when level 2 and level 3 still comes down to, is the locus of motivation inside you? That's always the best when it's inside you, or is it outside of you, meaning that, well, I got to get it done for my job? That makes it harder to do because you're less interested in getting it done because it's not really you driving yourself to do it. But it would be the same. It would be the same message across all three, I think. Can we just go through 2018 videos just to learn stuff? If you're not writing an exam, sure. But if you're writing the exam, no. Currently working for a PE fund, so I really want to go for private markets pathways. It looks like you strongly suggested. Well, you're not going to learn much in it. That's the problem. I mean, there's one reading that went on for like 15 pages, reteaching how to price out an option in a bond. Like any of you're reading anything, this is level 2 stuff that you're not going to retest level 2 stuff. This is a waste of time. And then it went on for pages and pages about duration, and I was like, but this is level 1 stuff. This is a waste of time. And when I talked about timber REITs, it barely said anything new that you. Here's the thing for level 3. What you learn is almost a repeat of stuff you saw in level 1 and level 2. It doesn't make you any better. Question is, how are you going to test that? I don't know how you're going to test it. But as I was doing it, I thought, this is a waste of time. There's nothing here. If you really want to do something in private markets, CAIA, the Alternative Investments Association, get that, the CAIA. It missed the mark completely, and it tried to make it too simple and too easy, and it missed the mark completely. Past 2024 level 3, solely throughout my entire CFA journey, nothing else. I truly thankful to you. all the way. Well, that's nice. How should I start my level 2 prep? I'm going to pass on that. Has the level 2 sequence changed since you posted the video? No. I wouldn't say it has. No. Just past level 1. Not satisfied with the grades of some of my topics. Should I review? No, I've already answered that. For level 2, I'd say you're going to review opportunistically. Please consider doing the weekly live Q&A at this time too. All for the market? Yeah, I think there's something to that. I changed the format of the market outlook to take out a lot of the detail because the detail is no longer needed. I think we're past the super importance of the Fed. I think the Fed is still important, but I think we're on a pathway now, and I think other things are becoming more important. So it's time to move past the excessive reliance on where rates are and what's going on. We can get that done on the screen, and I think each week it would be interesting to highlight a new company's earnings. Here's a company, here's one company, here's the earnings it reported, so that we over time get to know a bunch of different companies. And like I did with Netflix today, without giving an opinion on it, just getting familiar with what the company is doing, and some really broad strokes on the company. It doesn't take, the previous version would take me 5 hours of prep, almost 5-6 hours of prep, and almost 2-3 hours on a Sunday morning, that by the time it got to noon, I just wanted a break. But with the shorter version, yeah, I probably could move the live Q&A to noon. I'll bring it up tonight on tonight's live, and I'll see if people agree. The only problem with doing it now is I have no view on Globex. No market is open. Globex doesn't open until 6, so I don't know how futures are. I don't know what currencies are doing. I don't have any any insight into what's going on. Where do we leave off here? Mentioned before that you think CFA is dumbed down level 1 compared to previous years. Yeah. Do you think that applies to the rest of the level as well, or just level 1? Level 1, yeah, I have been out of level 1 and 2 for 2.5 years now. I couldn't even tell you what's going on at level 2. Not so much at level 3, but level 3 hasn't had the big rewrite that level 1 has had, but not so much at level 3. However, if I look at the new stuff coming in, especially private markets, that's really, really dumbed down. I mean, it's to the point of almost a waste of my time, because you get through it, you get to the end, and you go, I don't know anything more than I knew when I started. It just lacks substance. I will take CFA in 2028. Really, in 4 years? Will you suggest starting from now? No, 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 not at all. Thanks for the time. Oh, wait, that. Past level 2 in August, working full time, 30 years old. Would it be possible to write level 3 in February? It's too soon, man. You got the holidays coming up. You got Christmas. Why do you want to do that to yourself? Take August. Yeah, take August. Master's in finance finished. Do you think CFA level 1 will boost my curriculum to work in investment bank? I mean, investment banking is not an entry level job. Hang on. Oh, give me 1 second here. All right. Somebody's at the gate. I live in a community where you have a security gate, and every house has a gate. Somebody's at the gate, and my staff is inside, but they have no way of knowing that somebody's at the gate because the person lives in the community. So I had to send a message to the staff inside to open the gate. And the beautiful thing about communication is, somebody from Costa Rica is asking me over here in Canada to send a message to Costa Rica. It all happens like right away. What a world we live in. Isn't this beautiful? All right, where do we leave off? Oh yeah, let's answer this one. I just started reading it. Masters in finance finished. Do you think CFA level 1 will boost my curriculum to work in investment? You already got a master's in finance behind you. I don't know that you want to repeat. Level 1 is kind of just a repeat. It'd be like getting another master's from another university. Is like, well, it's a different accreditation. Yeah, but the overlap is so big. I would wait until you have a job and then let them pay for your CFA pathway. If I become a CFA charter holder, should I do MBA instead of Masters in Finance? General Management MBA? Yep. If you're going to do an MBA. What is the number one learning technique modern day pedagogy journals say is the best? Putting in the time. Putting in the time. Period. Hands down. Putting in the time. Period. That's it. Nothing else. well, I shouldn't say nothing else. There are other things as well, but it is about putting in the time. As far as pedagogy, that's teaching. That's about a teaching style, right? Of how you would teach, and the conclusion there is multiple styles, right? Multiple, not just relying on one, but multiple styles. So if you have no training in pedagogical techniques, you tend to just do one thing, which is repeat. The page says this. I'm going to tell you what the page says, without bringing in different ways of teaching it. But that's about the teaching side, not the learning side. Um, I don't know that there is like by far the best is time, hands down. Have you tried using Chat GPT to calculate intrinsic value of publicly traded companies? Nope. Nope, because first of all, it has a cutoff date, I think, of 2021. It really wouldn't be of much value. Is your package a really one-time to pass fee? As advised by one of your staff that there's a fee for extension of access to your materials after the exam. I don't know. I know that sounds odd because it's called markmeldrum.com, but I did sell the business to Serify. Serify owns it. If there has been a change in the pricing structure, I'm not part of the management team at all. So there'd be no reason for them to include me in on any decision that they would make. Perhaps they have changed something. That I don't know. That I don't know. Fixed income trader for an asset management firm. Would you recommend the CFA charter over building quant skills? Well, that's a good one. Fixed income is far more quantitatively driven than anything else. I mean, you can bring quantitatively driven strategies to equities, for example, but you end up with something that's far more probabilistic than deterministic. But with fixed income, if you have a yield curve, you have a price. You may not agree with the yield curve. You may say, well, here's the price. The price is not in debate that much. So then it's more a matter of, do I agree or disagree with the yield curve? I don't know that a quantitative approach will help you there. A quantitative approach will help you price out bonds, but the price is the price in the market. You can see the price to know whether a bond is overvalued or undervalued. You don't look at the bond and say, it's overvalued. You look at the yield curve and you say, well, yields are too high or yields are too low. Hence, the bond is too rich, okay, that's done. So it's more. I think that's less quantitatively driven and more strategically driven. I guess there could be something with corporate bonds where, depending on the curve that the company has, because they'll have multiple issues, maybe a quantitative approach can find something there. But I think it lends itself more to quantitative analysis. The CFA will give you more than just hang on a second. Let me just do one more thing here. All right. Yeah, the CFA will cover a lot more equity, heavy on equities. There's a lot on equities, alternative investments, derivatives that may not apply to what you're doing and may just be more work that you're taking on. Fail level 3 for the. I wonder if there is just a designation for fixed income. I don't know. I wonder if there is just for fixed income. Failed level 3 first time, very close to passing. Should I register for February? Yep. Yep, because you're not starting from zero. So yes. How much time would you allot to prepare for level 3? Do you recommend a prep course for level 3, or do you recommend simply relying on CFA? If you can get well, let's say if you can get a prep course, level 3 is a difficult one in terms of prep. It's very rarely is it done well. So sometimes it'll cause more damage than helping. But if you find that you're having a difficult time with level 3, then yeah, seek out something. Our market share at level 3 is probably one of the biggest at level 3. We do quite well there, and I'm still the person at level 3. How much time? I think 6 months is the appropriate time. I think 6 months is good. What do you think about CMT course for learning tech? No. Do you want to learn technical analysis? Technical analysis is not it's not what you think it is. It is not something in which you can discover something objective. All right. So I want you to think about the truth of something. Let's say that I'm, looking to discover gravity. And I hypothesize, let's say it's 200 years ago, I hypothesize that there is some force called gravity. How would I come to know that this is true? And maybe a bunch of people think there's some force called gravity. So all these different methods come up, but somebody finds a method that discovers, oh, yes, here's gravity. Here's how we can measure it. All the methods would converge to that method, so that the truth of something is inversely related to the number of methods by which we know it, 1 over the square root of n. So if there is one way to know something, the probability that it's true is 100%, because everyone's using that one method, and with that one method, everyone can replicate it. It must exist. We can hypothesize that there is something called an atom with an electron and a proton. How do we come to know it? Well, what if there were 10,000 ways in which to get to know it? Chances are there's nothing there if you need 10,000 ways. Somebody would have figured it out, much like a game of Battleship. Somebody would have hit the battleship. So usually when something is ontologically true, methods will converge so that you only have a few methods by which we know it, and it will be replicable, and anybody anywhere can do it. So that we know that there is truth there. We also know there is truth there is if I don't tell you anything. I discover gravity and I keep it a big secret. Gravity would still exist. You would still be subject to the forces of gravity, even if you didn't understand it, but you would still be subject to the forces of gravity if I didn't tell you. Technical analysis has thousands of indicators to try to figure out the price movement. So that means with all of those indicators, 1 over the square root of n, the probability of there being something there to discover is almost 0. In other words, all of these indicators are not measuring something, because that something they claim to measure simply doesn't exist, which is the future. The future is unknowable. It is creatable, but unknowable. So technical analysis cannot be about predicting the next price movement of a stock, because if it worked, if it was possible, if there was an ontological reality out there on the other side of that hidden wall, which exists, saying it is knowable, some of these methods would have hit that battleship, and then the methods would have converged to a few methods for knowing it. So the probability is 1 over n, the square root of n, with n being the number of indicators or methods available, and there are thousands, with more being created every day. That tells you straight up that there is no ontological truth on the other side of that, wall. It doesn't exist. So what is it then? It is meant to be more of a social psychological a field than it is a scientific field. The reality of a future price exists to the extent that you can get everyone else to believe that that is the future price. It is not the future price. There is no future. All futures are created by what we do today. So technical analysis is not meant to be a secret. So let's say I create a technical indicator and I don't tell anyone. It wouldn't change the world. In other words, it wouldn't do anything. It would have no power. The only power technical analysis has is in getting other people to believe that it has power. Hence, it's more of a social psychological momentum tool than it is anything to do with reality. That's all it is. So rather than learn technical analysis, why don't you become a cult leader and get a huge following and tell people that the price of this is going up? It's the same thing. Technical analysis is, at the heart of it, a pump and dump scheme. It is, if you can get enough people to believe that your indicators are real, the price will go to that point because people will act in a way that will make the price go there. If it is not a widely held belief, it's not going anywhere. The more you can get it to be a widely held belief, the more the belief has action in the world, but there is no action outside of the belief. But even if you don't believe in gravity, you're still going to fall off that building. That's the difference between something being ontologically true and something being ontologically false. The future, knowing the future, is bullshit. That's ontologically false. Creating the future is very real, but you need large audiences and you got to convince a bunch of people that this shit's real. It's not real. So there you go. I wouldn't waste any of my time with technical analysis, but I wouldn't waste any of my time with religion. That's not true for other people. Other people firmly believe there is a God. It's also one of those ontologically false things that you, on the other side, if there was, and with all the methods of knowing it, you would have at some point in time, some method would have hit the battleship. But it doesn't matter. It does not matter. God doesn't have to exist. Only the belief has to exist. The belief will cause people to act in a way that it wouldn't matter if they existed or not. It has action in the world. The technical analysis is a religion. That's all. Never got A's in exams, never cleared any competitive exam. Kind of like a C student. What advice would you give to clear exams? I always felt it would be the same thing. I will never make it. Well, that requires a bunch of why questions. Why are you a C student? Right? Is it just because you're looking to just get by? C's good enough. That's good enough. I don't want to put in the effort. I don't want to put in the time. Or did you really, really, really try, put in the time and never got past a C? You're doing the wrong thing. This is not your skill. It's not your talent. Pick something else. But if it's just because you had this attitude of just getting by, what I used to tell my students all the time is that is your attitude. I've got some good news for you. You will get to spend the rest of your life just getting by. You'll never have to work hard because nothing will ever come your way. So I think you need to have give me a second here. The gate's still not open. Gate is still not open. That means the staff are somewhere on the property and are not checking their phone. I'm going to tell this other guy to try honking his horn. Give me a minute. Okay. All right. What designation or skills would you say complement a CFA, CPA combo? Would it be comp sci, higher level math, calculus? Enough with the skills. Enough with the letters behind your name. You prepare for life and then you live life. Go live life. You're good. You got a CFA, a CPA. Get out there. Get out there. Now get a real world degree. A real world degree is experience. Enough. At some point, you have to stop reading books. Can you recommend another good book for this? Why? Why? Get out there. Get out there. You've prepared. You're good. Get out there. When the master's in finance finished, do you think CFA level 1 will boost my curriculum? Oh, I already answered that. Level 2, May or August? I see no reason why you'd want to go past May. May, you got lots of time for May. In the real world, do we even use the residual method for equity valuation? Free cash flow is by far the dominant one. By far. Residual method, I think, would probably be used for a very mature company with very little growth that may be earning more than its cost of capital, but not much. Maybe earning more. Well, how much more is that worth? But not really. Free cash flow is the king when it comes to DCF. Does the tutor counselor help with creating a personalized study plan and study tips based on results? Yeah, you can have that done. We have that available. Taking level 2 in a month, bought your course, very good. Okay. Trying to set for level 1 in November, working full time. As soon as I do something except work and study, guilt comes creeping in. How do I deal with this? Unable to take a satisfactory break. I know that feeling. I mean, there sometimes, I'm working on something and I got maybe an hour to go and I can wrap it up, but I've just had enough for the day. So I start doing something mindless, like just, surfing on YouTube for a bit just to take my mind off it. And I do feel guilty, after half an hour, I think, I could have been half an hour closer to being finished here. But you got to have balance, right? If you're just procrastinating, that's a problem. If you're having too much fun, well, then that's a problem. But to take a night off here and there it's no big deal. Let it go. It's not a big deal. How to deal with the guilt, though? Yeah, I know. It's one thing to say don't worry about it, but it's another thing to feel the guilt. I don't have a good answer for that one. Is this enough time to prepare for our loan scratch for me? Oh, that was from what subject select first if one is weak in math? Then math. Then quant. If you're weak there, that's where you should start. Do you think resigning from work for level 2 is a good option? No, I do not. Just past level 2, good. How would you say us going for the transition from level 2 to level 3? don't have an answer for that. I'd need a much more precise question than that. That's such a big question, the transition. Well, what do you mean the transition? It'd be like saying, I'm finished my first year university, I'm going to second. Can you tell me about the transition? It's like, well, stop showing up for your first year classes, show up for your second year classes. It's such a big question because it's so vague and abstract. I don't know how to answer that. So if you have tighter words that you can use, 6 months enough for level 2? Yes, it is. Thanks. Okay, good. New level 3 structure with the new pathways to portfolio management, private markets, private wealth. Can you explain? I have a video on my channel that did explain those and why you should avoid it and stick with portfolio management. I'd direct you to that. What is a good time in the CFA journey to begin the applied? I don't know that I would say begin as if it had some end. It never has an end because content is always added. I think adding it at level 1 makes a lot of sense because there's content in the applied level that will help you develop a passion for finance, number 1, see how it's applied and make some of the more abstract concepts come to life. And it never expires, so it wouldn't matter if you didn't get to all of it in level 1. It's not meant to be done that way. I'm at a prop trading firm for the last 3 years. I want to level up my game. Does a course add value to this particular domain? For prop trading, well, proprietary trading, I mean, you eat what you kill, right? You got to come up with your own trading ideas. It will help you structure your thinking about things so that you're not just buying what's in the news that day. Most of the movement in names happens overnight anyways. By the time it comes out in the morning, it's already out there. It will help you structure your thinking better. But, it depends. Prop trading in what? Some prop trading is equity, some is only currencies. Currencies are a rough game to play no matter what you're doing because it's random. Masters in Finance. Do you think CFA level 1 will boost my curriculum? Already. Okay. People asking me the same question again and again and again, 10 times. I say, stop reading them. I feel overwhelmed. Applied series, as I have little practical domain skills. How would you recommend to approach it? Sector studies. Start with the sector studies. Pick a sector, any sector, and just go through that. What it's meant to do is to sort of help you. Let's say that you were interested in the semiconductor space. Well, there's a video for understanding semiconductors, and so now you know the difference between a foundry versus a design firm versus the equipment supplier. What who's in the equipment supply space, who's in the foundry space, who's in the design firm space. So we know that NVIDIA is a design firm, right? They don't actually make their chips. TMS, Taiwan Semiconductor, makes their chips. What's the difference between GPUs, CPUs, memory? Who are the memory makers? What's the difference between a processor versus an analog device? Who's in the analog space? So it gives you a good idea of how to understand that. Well, I think you can get that, right? I don't know that would be overwhelming. Start with something like that, and you just branch out from there. Someone not able to clear level 2 on the passing line for the third time. That would require a whole bunch of follow-up questions. You're on the passing line for the third time. What have you been doing? How have you been preparing for this? How long have you given yourself? I would say that for the fourth time, you're going to have to do something different than the first 3 times. Whether that is, putting in way more time, whether that is, moving on to somebody else who can help you with it, but you got to do something different. Annualized return doesn't provide a true sense of the overall return compared to absolute return. No. How are you going to compare 4 different investments? One is for 17 days, one's for 32 days, one's for 6 months, one's for 9 months. How are you going to compare those? You have to have some way of finding a way to find some common way to compare them. Now, a big return over a short period of time doesn't mean that you can replicate it again and again and again. But we must have some scale by which we can measure things. However imperfect it may be, we have to have some scale. So no, I don't think that annualizing something, well, first of all, when you annualize it, it gives you just a comparison method. It's not your real return. It's just a way to compare something. That's all. Apart from CFA, are there any other certificates useful for portfolio management? I believe there is one. Just the letters don't come to mind. Work in a bank, enroll for FRM. I want to pursue CFA as well to be an expert in finance. Good idea. Sure. Yeah. How to manage both? Well, I don't know that I would do both at the same time, right? Finish one, then do the other. Can CFA help you become a CFO? Yeah, I think so. CFP could be a good addition over CFA for asset management. Financial planning? No, I think that would be if you're going into wealth management, but very few wealth managers actually construct portfolios and do asset selection. Very few actually do that. How to do comparative advantage analysis in real life. Comparative advantage of what? The question is too big. Comparative advantage or comparative advantage analysis in real life. Comparative advantage of what? Please ignore the question about spending 1,000 whilst earning 10K. It is its own. Any advice on the approach for L3 and how preparation and revision should differ from L3? Differ from L2, I think you mean. So level 3, level 1 is a lot of declarative knowledge. So if you look at Bloom's taxonomy of learning, you could probably get through level 1 with mostly the bottom 2 levels and a little bit of the third level. For level 2, there's a lot more process involved. I don't know that I would rely on the lowest level of learning from Bloom's taxonomy. You're probably at the second, third, maybe a little bit of the fourth level. For level 3, you have to really elevate to the top levels of Bloom taxonomy. Memorization is not going to help you at all. Understanding, hopefully you've already got that done, but it's more about evaluation and judgment at level 3. So you just have to elevate your learning to say, okay, well, you read something, you think, okay, I understand this, but can you evaluate it? Can you make a judgment about something? If I gave you a situation and 3 options, could you evaluate which option is the more optimal one given that situation? That's something you're not going to memorize your way through because you don't know what situation I'm going to give you. Your building financial modeling course. I can't seem to find that anywhere on the site. I'm level 1. So it's in the applied level. I believe it's in sector studies. There's a folder specifically for the financial modeling. Yeah. I just lost where I was here. Where was I? I can't be that far off. The chat sometimes just jumps. Okay, well, I'm going to start from the bottom, work my way up. We're 2.5 hours into this, so we're going to end in about half an hour anyway. So let me get to the bottom. Excited to dive into your modeling course and finish your PM course this winter. The value you bring is incredible. Thank you. Okay. What do you think of doing CFA as a software engineer, break into finance? Sure. I got rejected by a hedge fund because I didn't have the financial knowledge. Well, you already have your answer. Yeah. Financial modeling course on the applied level is currently incomplete. So I was just wondering, when do you expect to complete? Every week I post it. I was very clear on this. It starts in September and it lasts, I think, for 12, 13, 14 weeks. And every week I post something. So this week, we're going on to the debt and interest schedules, which has cash, our revolver, and our debt. And in our debt, we also have to take care of our leases. So we're going to take care of interest income and interest expense on the income statement, a few lines on the cash flow statement. Next week, we'll go into a few of the other categories, other long-term assets, other long-term liabilities, break that apart. And I think we'll also be doing stock-based compensation. Got to get rid of that one so that we can get our share count right. Yeah, over weeks. These things happen over weeks. So it'll just continue. It'll just continue on. And then when I'm done that, I go into CapRead. That one will go faster. This one is taking a long time because I want you to understand the Excel side of it, right? Once you understand the Excel side of it, every model is the same. You know, how you do it in Excel is the same. Once you understand best practices for modeling, it's the same. What is challenging is every company you get to, how do you model revenues? How do you model costs? How am I going to take care of debt now that I have mortgages and not bonds? How would I think about how I forecast these line items? That's the interesting stuff. That will just continue on. So those will go faster. Each new company will take, 4 weeks to get up? Fairly quick, because I won't be spending my time saying, here's how you put it into Excel. We'll just be figuring out how you would model revenues. And then I just show you the completed model. Why are mods deleting stuff? There are no mods. And if somebody's deleting stuff, it's YouTube directly. Do you read Howard Marks' memos? I don't read it. I watch. He has a YouTube channel. I do listen to his regular weekly podcast. Where are we? I think most of us are hesitating to start CFA journey because we think it won't probably help us get the good jobs because they require experience. Do you agree? Well, you can't get a job to get the good jobs that require experience. This is a hierarchy. Okay, so capitalism is a hierarchy where talent moves up. That's it. It's a hierarchy. So you're going to start at the bottom no matter where you start. And as you get experience, it gives you the opportunity to move up. What would be the point of preparing yourself for anything if you could step into the CEO job at any time? That you could start, well, I'll start upper mid management. Let me start at the C level, right? Well, what would be the point? You got to work your way up. You got to work your way up. You'll always start at the bottom and you work your way up. So to say, what's the point? I'm not going to get a good job. I'm going to get one of those entry level jobs. And then you need experience to get the good job. Yeah, that's the point. I mean, you could do the same. What's the point of going to university? I got to start at year 1. You can't just start at year 4. You need 3 years before you get to year 4. Yeah, that's the point. Nobody starts school at grade 6 and then goes on to 4th year university and then is a CEO, right? I mean, you know this. I mean, it's common sense. You know this. Unless, I can understand that with all that woke bullshit, common sense has left the world for a period of time, and we just threw common sense out, and people just got things based on their level of victimization so that you could become the CEO of a company by claiming enough victim that you were the biggest victim in the world. But that's all bullshit, and that's all gone. We're back to common sense where, yeah, yeah, you need this to get this, to get this, to get this, to get this, because that's the way the world works. The world rewards experience. The world rewards excellence, not just showing up. You know, biggest benefit to actually taking the exams versus just studying the material, accreditation, right? So think about a university. Most people think a university is in the business of delivering education. It is not. You can get that knowledge anywhere. You can buy the book, you can read the book. There's lots of stuff on YouTube. You can learn anything a university teaches without ever paying tuition at a university. University is not in the business of education, it's in the business of certification. You go to the university to get the degree. That's basically it. The degree signals to the world that you've achieved some level of competence in a field. That's what it does. Do you need the 3 letters behind your name to know everything a CFA charter holder knows? No. But the person across the table from you is not going to know that you know it without those 3 letters behind your name. With those 3 letters behind your name, you don't have to prove anything. It signals that, hey, I know what I'm talking about over here, right? I know what I'm talking about. That's what the 3 letters are for. That's what the exams are for, and the 3 letters are for. It is a signaling device to the market that you have a certain level of competence. And the more important that signaling device is, the more valuable it becomes. So a Stanford and a Harvard MBA are great signaling devices. They're worth a lot of money. Tri-County College, Community College MBA is not worth anything, right? So it is a signaling device. As far as you yourself goes, if you don't need to signal to the market, then what's the point? I mean, it's the same thing for me. I learn new things all the time. Well, why don't you get another degree? What's the point? Who would I be signaling to? Like, what would be the point of going beyond what I have? You know, I have 5 degrees. Is that not enough? Like, I'm done signaling at this point. So I can learn a bunch of new stuff, and I don't see the need for formal education for that because I don't need the accreditation. I just need the knowledge. Newly settled in Toronto, looking for quick ways to enter the job market. I come from an African country, been working in finance for about 10 years. Any advice? I am far removed from the job market. So I don't know that I would have any advice because I don't know what employers are looking for anymore. I found it hard to understand accounting, like all the items on the balance sheet and stuff, why the debit is the credit and all that. How can I use accounting? Take an accounting course. Go on to YouTube, type in financial accounting playlist, and there are plenty of professors that have their financial accounting playlist online. Just start. After a couple of hours of that, 2-3 hours, you go, oh, okay, I get it now. Goal is not to become an accountant. The goal is just to become a little bit more familiar with accounting terminology. Won't take you long. I followed your financial modeling, but I chose to analyze Aptiv. Quite challenging to forecast revenues of certain sectors. It can be. Glad to have chosen your course for level 1. Okay. I hadn't hard to understand. Okay. I already did that. I'm trying to find questions that aren't repeats of questions I already had. In case you missed my question, cash flow statement, trading securities vs investment security. I have no idea what any of that means with examples. What's a trading security vs investment securities? What is that? I don't know what any of that is. No idea what that is. Are you going to keep giving discounts for CFA candidates on your applied series? If you are a CFA candidate, yes. Because I think the applied level is um, well, not just beneficial. I think it's necessary, especially if you have no experience in the world at all. I think it's almost necessary being in a job interview for that. And if you look at the cost of it, it's look at you're going to have a full financial modeling course in there, and I have benchmarked against the others. This is deeper and way better. I know it is because I've got subscriptions to the other ones, and as I'm watching them, I'm thinking this is not teaching me anything though. I'm not learning anything other than how to move around in Excel, and you're doing it so fast on the bloody keyboard. I can't see what you're doing anyways. And you're using manufactured data, and you're just using another analyst's assumptions. We're not actually coming up with the assumptions. Isn't that the whole point? You're going to pay $500 for those courses. The whole applied level is only $320 lifetime, and with much deeper knowledge on modeling, and not just one company or two or three or four, but one in every single sector. It won't stop. I'll just keep adding to it. I think it's an absolute necessity if you're going through the CFA program. So for CFA candidates, I will price it at 120 lower than what the market has it. It's for 320, which is, when you figure, well, what if I use it for the next 10 years? $32 a year. Right? Now the price is going to go up. At some point, the price is going to have to go up, because the cost of the subscriptions that I have to start paying for to get the data that I need to get done what I have to do, it does start adding a cost. At some point, it's going to go up. Amazon doesn't say, hey, guess what? It's cheaper for you this year. Not Amazon. Not Amazon. Every year, and you need a server, right? Every year, prices go up, 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 up. So at some point, the price will go up. So it is, think about it as buying an appreciating asset. Excited to dive into your modeling course and finish your PM course this winter. The value it provides is incredible. Okay. CFA enough long term. I don't know what that means when you say, is it enough? Is it enough for what? Is it enough of a credential for the financial industry? Sure. But what matters more than anything else, all of these things are signaling devices. Any degree you have, any letters behind your name, these are simply signaling devices that you have a certain level of knowledge. What is worth more than all of that is experience. This helps you get in the door. Never give up experience to pursue more letters behind your name. Always experience. Always experience. Once you got enough letters behind your name, start living life. Get out there. Start living it. How long is the discount duration for your applied series? If you have at least a level 1 standing in the CFA family, you're in at 320. If you are a subscriber on markmeldrum.com at level 1, you don't have level 1 standing yet, you're just starting level 1, we extend it to you. But if you're a level 1 subscriber somewhere else and you don't have level 1 standing yet, you can't subscribe, because you do have to demonstrate that you are a level 1 candidate. Now you can subscribe and pay the $440, but you can't get the $320 price unless you demonstrate that you do have at least level 1 standing. So there is some value in starting level 1 with us, because you can get the applied level without having to have level 1 standing yet. I have recently started to analyze 10K of Aptiv components, targets OEM. Yep. I'd like to have your view about the reality of autonomous vehicle. Is it really going to impact the auto market? So it's not going to stop. I think it's a really expensive way to solve an inexpensive problem is autonomy, but it's not going to stop at all. I don't think that it will be a thing until every vehicle can talk to every other vehicle and the grid can talk. But for one vehicle to go it all alone, to figure everything out all on its own, is hugely, hugely expensive to get done. Yeah, hugely expensive to get done. And it really would only work in certain countries, right? But I don't think it's going to stop. I don't know if the future is autonomous or not. Um, yeah, I don't know that I would want to get into an autonomous vehicle that's not geofenced. Um, like in the back seat with no one in the front seat. Because what if you see something about to happen? It's like sometimes I have dreams like that where I'm in the passenger side and the car's about to crash, and all I got to do is get my foot across to the other side to hit the brake pedal, but I can't. I can't get my foot across because there's no one in the driver's seat anymore. And I don't know if you ever had dreams like that, but I already have dreams like that. I've had that for a while. I don't know why. It's one of those recurring dreams. Well, this is the problem with these kind of companies is you're forecasting for, you're going to have a wide dispersion in your forecast. That's not the important thing. Have a base case. Have some case by which you say, here's what I think. Here's my best estimate. Now, the point estimate you arrive at is not going to be important. It is the sensitivity of your estimate to changes in your assumptions that will tell you, how risky that thing is. That if you change some assumptions and you get really wildly different valuations, if the industry grows at 7% instead of 3%, are you getting wildly different valuations? If you are, then you have an inherently risky stock. But sometimes the price target you come up with is not the important thing. It's the sensitivity of that price target to changes in assumptions so that you can then come down to the conclusion and say, okay, I'm in this company and I know it's really sensitive to small changes in the growth rate in this sector. Well, now, when you're following that stock, your risk factors have been brought down to two or three key variables that you're going to look at. Your big risk factors are two to three drivers. That's sometimes the better outcome than any price target you're going to get to. So have a base case. How can you help design your base case? There's lots of industry associations that do research on how many companies are in this space, who suppliers are. Aptiv in their 10K must have some. Do they say something about customer concentration or how many customers they have? Usually they'd say something about none of our customers make up more than 10%. If they have customers that make up more than 10% of the revenue, they have to tell you three of our customers make up this much of our revenue. They do have to break that down if they have customer concentration. All right. Let's just scroll down. Where are we here? We'll go another 4 or 5 questions. Why did you remove the seminar series from CFA 3? They were really helpful. Can you please? I didn't make any decision to remove anything. I didn't make any decision. That is, are you sure that they're removed? Hang on a second here. Let's find out for sure. Maybe you're just not looking in the right space. Let's go to videos. Why is this not working for me? There we go. Let's go to level 3. I imagine you must mean 2025. Huh. You're right. I don't have an answer for you. I don't really make the decisions on that anymore. But yeah, the seminar series was really good. There were 6 really good ones in there. I'll find out. Maybe it was just an oversight. I'll find out. Okay. Anything else here? I'm gonna ignore all the questions about the market itself because I have a live at 7:15 that will do that. I think we've done okay here on answering these questions. Of the people I've spoken to, they say level 3 is the easiest to study for, but they were all caught off guard by how hard the exam was. Do you recommend a different approach? Okay, I think I've answered that. Um, I don't know that level 3 is easier. It's just that a lot of people were filtered out at level 1 and level 2. That's why you tend to have higher pass rates at level 3 because they were already filtered out, and perhaps those that were filtered out or those that made it through were better prepared, thereby giving the impression that level 3 was easier, but it wasn't easier. It's just that they were just their ability was to the level where they were more prepared for it. So it could have just been a perception without being a reality. It seems candidates who bought paid deferrals always pass at a lower rate. Do you think CFA is deliberately making those exams harder? You write the same exam as the other person. You write the same exam as the other person. What it usually comes down to is this: it's behavior. It's not the act of deferring. It's the behavior of the person who would defer. It is usually, if you're not prepared for the exam, you defer. It's it's I've had the same issue in university when you allow students to be sick for an exam without any questions asked. They will be sick for the exam if they're not prepared to write, but they're not prepared to write because of who they are. Give them another week, they still won't be prepared because that's what they do. They weren't prepared because they didn't prepare and they weren't going to. Give them another week, they're still not going to, and they'll still perform poorly. That had they written the first time, they would have performed poorly anyways. It's just previous to now, CFAI could not tell who prepared well and who didn't prepare well. But now they can because you have self-identified by saying, oh, I'm not prepared, I'll defer. Well, those who defer got into the situation by not putting in the time. And so they defer, and in their mind, they have all this time now until they get to the same spot again where it's like, oh, I don't have time. It's just their habitual, it's the way they conduct themselves that brings them to the point of having to defer. It's not the act of deferring that results in the lower rate. It's what you are doing that gets you to the point where you say, I have to defer. You're not going to change your behavior. That's why I say, if for 4 years of university, if you've been a solid C student and you're looking to just get by, what makes you think that this is going to be any different for you, that suddenly you're going to, be in the top 10% without changing your perspective and changing your behavior? You're not going to just get by CFA. Oh, you might squeak through level 1, but level 2 will have something to say about that, and level 3 will beat the crap out of you, right? This is not a place to just get by. If your goal is to just get by, don't do it. You don't need it. This is not a requirement. It's not a license. You don't need the CFA to practice finance somewhere. It's not a license. Now, some things you need licenses for. You don't need this, right? So if you're looking to just get by, don't do it. Don't do it. It's just going to be a big pain in the ass and wasted money and wasted time. At some point, you're not going to make it. If you're going to start, you want to say, I want the 3 letters. If you don't think you're going to get the 3 letters, don't start, because you can't get the 3 letters unless you pass all 3 exams. So if you're just going to memorize your way through level 1 and barely get by, you're not going to make it. You're not going to make it. I'm telling you right now. So if your goal is to just get by, save your money, save your time. You're not going to make it. Not through this one, right? You have to love this stuff. You have to want to do this stuff. You have to love the world of finance. You have to love the markets. You have to love the game. And if you don't love the game, pick something else. Pick something else. It's okay. I'm not a physicist, right? I don't have longings to be a physicist. If I did, I'd be a physicist. So let's end it. Let's end it on that one. We'll end there. And we have another live tonight at 7:15 for the market itself. Okay. Yeah. All right. Ciao, everybody. I'm signing off. 2 hours and 49 minutes. I think that's. I think I put in the time. I'll see you. I'll see you out there. Ciao.